Okay, next one. So it looks like Iowa was the first state in the nation to approve legislation removing gender identity protections from the state's civil rights code. Um, I guess gender identity was a protected class. What do you think? Do you think other states will follow?
I don't know. I don't know.
And
It's
then I
so hard.
wonder,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
to our earlier conversation, maybe there are just these general demographic discrimination claims that people potentially can have. I don't know. If you're like, if you are not a protected class anymore, right? But there's a reverse discrimination situation, or you're a trans person and you're just being severely mistreated. Would you still have a claim, even if you're not technically in a protected class in that state?
So, but not so long ago, during my career, um, New York did not have protections for gender identity protected classes. It's
Mhm.
relatively new, right?
Right.
Um, and we used to run around bringing perceived gender identity claims. So like perceived
Mhm.
gender claims, because you could sue someone for discriminating against you for being a woman or being a man. So we would say, hey, you perceive our client to be a man, but our client is in fact a woman. And that would be how our client perceived
Interesting.
themselves, right? That is their self-determined gender identity. And those cases were an uphill slog with a fair amount of risk, but it was worth it because nobody would help people in that situation.
Yeah.
So this does make me sad. I know a lot of the stuff we talk about, I'm like, not that big a deal.
Yeah.
This bums me out. Um, and the difficulties present on gender identity claimants, like I'm not trying to like slur the gender identity community, but even in our experience, the process for gender identity claimants is so difficult that the
Mhm.
litigation process, to be clear, I think also a variety of other things. But
Mhm.
the suicide attempt rate is very high.
Yeah.
Plaintiffs, just for the plaintiffs, not even for the whole population experiencing this issue, just within our own data set of plaintiffs, the suicide attempt rate is very high. And then you get firms who don't want to take the claims anymore because, you know, you want to help somebody, you pour 40 grand into a case, a couple hundred attorney hours,
Mhm.
they attempt suicide or worse, succeed.
Yeah.
Um, and then, listen, if they're passed away, you can't bring that claim in where you lost your star witness. But also, if they were not successful, which is great, they're still alive, often they will not have the bandwidth to go forward with this claim. So the
Right.
upshot is, and I get it, I get why they feel that way, but you get firms turning their back on these claims because they're like, oh, we can never get those clients to the finish line,
Mm.
which is gross
Ugh,
to
and
say.
that's so hard because it's that, I think that if you have mental health problems, you're potentially suicidal. Sometimes I've found if you're turned down by the system that's meant to help you, that can sometimes even be worse than the initial egregious thing that happened, because then you go down this really dangerous path of nihilism and believing that nothing matters, that no one's going to help you, and that the world is completely orchestrated against you, which is really sad.
Yeah. And listen, I can go to these firms and be like, hey, what you're doing is wrong. What you're doing is wrong. And their response is easy for you to say, Vince. I'm over here. I can afford to run about 40 cases a year. Last time I checked, Vince, you can run 450. I run 40 a year. You want me to take one of my 40 as a case that I'm not too sure I'll get to fruition?
Mhm.
And if I don't have a good success rate on my 40 cases per year, guess what? I'm not here helping anyone next year. And my
Mm.
family starves. So easy for you, Vince, to come in here and berate me that I should be taking these claims. How about you, Vince, take them all? Right. And it's like, well, we're certainly doing our part, but like we people do perceive us, to your point, to be the system. We're not the system. We're private businesses, but
Yeah.
people think we're the government. People will often say things like, whoa, whoa, whoa. What do you mean I got to give you a percentage? I pay taxes. And it's just like, yeah, I'm not the government, my friend. Like, that's not, do I look like the government to you? Um, I actually once made a guy really mad. I was like, I'm not the government. Look at this suit. This is not a government suit. And like, that man did not appreciate that statement, but like, he fully perceived that I was like an agency paid for by the federal government.
Oh
Right.
my
And I was like, it took me back, but like, that's a common feeling. And then when firms turn people down, people do associate the system, the
Yeah,
monolith, as
yeah.
turning their back. Right.
Right. Right. Like the justice. I mean, I've referred people to you before who've had corrupt lawyers, and they just, that even to them is the most traumatizing piece of it because I like, and it's hard because you have to, as lawyers, explain your role in the ecosystem because people just don't understand it. But then at that point, potentially they're so disillusioned and sad and hopeless that like, yeah, you don't really know where to turn. I and that's why it was funny. I was talking to someone yesterday about I was on the phone with a former client, and she's like, you're kind of like a fixer, but not for the powerful, for like the less powerful. Like a fixer, because people who just handle like the legal media, mental health challenges of a person going through something and help them figure out all the right people to connect to to solve their problem. And it's almost like social work in a way sometimes when I work with people, because you don't have like people, yeah, they hit dead ends unless they have something that's really clear cut. And I think like your firm is one of the few firms that still gives a lot of dead end people hope. And like, here's some, or you spend the time talking to people and you'll say like, here's some potential paths. I mean, you'll be blunt if there aren't, but I think people, they hit this dead end, and it's hard, in the law, they hit this dead end.
Yeah. But even so, certainly we try. Like, we'll set aside some bandwidth to take cases we believe in. But I'm not going to play it like I'm like altruistic over here. Like, I definitely made a choice last week. I took a custom executive compensation because the guy was flat out like, listen, here's the offer. I'll give you a piece for the next 3 years of whatever improvement you arrange for me. Just go. And it was one of those things where like, tell me more. Say like, let's go. I
Mhm.
want to buy some cows. I want some Scottish Highland miniature cows on this farm. And there's no question that deal, I'm getting cows, I'm getting too
Totally.
many cows. Maybe I'm buying the farm next door. So
Yeah, you run a business and that's fine. Like that, but it's you're limited by, you also don't determine what the laws are. Like the
you don't
government.
determine what the laws are. And I say that all the time. Like, listen, you should vote better. Stop voting for the two big political parties. Neither of them are really that great for workers. Go to progressive families, go to the progressives themselves, go to the green, whatever,
Yeah.
Bernie,
Yeah,
even, right?
totally.
Um, God, there's something else I was going to add there. Yeah, I don't know. The removal of gender protections really bums me out because it's the impact of that discrimination. Like, when an African American person experiences discrimination, that hurts. It sucks. It's horrible. It's probably not the first time.
Yeah,
And it's so pervasive that there's a level of ability to contend with a volume of discrimination. Some other forms of discrimination, that ability to survive,
yeah.
and no one should need that ability to survive, but that ability to survive, to go against the grain, to like soldier on, isn't there in the same way. And part of that might be so many horrible things have happened that you're out of volume. You're out of the
Mhm.
ability to
Can't fight
fight.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just tired. I'm tired. And when you see the protections stripped away from those populations, you're you're putting bodies in bags. It just is what it is.
It's true. And I think it is life or death in that way. But it goes back to what we talked about a couple of weeks or months ago with this Darwinian survival of the fittest theme, that I think is what they mean by bringing masculine energy into workplaces. And what this is going to be a really twisted thing to say, but I think that putting bodies in bags is sometimes the intention, the indirect intention of people. And I hate to, like, I really believe that.
Wow. Oh, that's
Um,
so interesting.
yeah, not everyone, and maybe for some people it's so deeply subconscious, but it's really sad.
Interesting. I think, listen, I think if you look at the way the anti-gay discrimination movement won hearts and minds, one of the best ever.
Right.
Such a successful enterprise. 20, listen, it was a long fight. It was a long fight, but there was a concerted effort for 20 years. And my God, did they succeed, right? You got
Mhm.
a president currently who's often described as a Nazi cutting deals for that community, right?
Mhm.
That still marginalized, of course, still experiencing discrimination, of course. But wow, what a successful push, right?
Right. Right.
The gender identity movement has not experienced that success. There have been misplays. There's been
Yeah.
weird things. Why are we dying on the hill of people with high testosterone
Right.
hurting women in combat sports? Like, I don't know the answer there. I don't know the answer, but like, why is that the pitched fight that was selected? Why is basic human respect and like we should treat you like a human being and give you a chance to have equal protections in the workforce, not the fight we choose? Because that fight is much more meaningful, but also
Yeah.
it doesn't trigger people in the same way. People get upset when you're, and it's such a small percentage, transitioning 12-year-olds,
Yeah.
right? It's like, I don't know the answer there. I don't know the science. I don't know the data. I don't know the mental health. I don't know any of it, right? But why was that the optical point that this movement pivoted on? That's
Mhm.
not, that's not where we start. That's
Yeah.
not,
It's true. It was a messaging problem from the beginning.
yeah,
And and then a refusal to shift into something that would, and I understand in a way their point of like, we are human beings, no matter what, you have to treat us as such. Any, like, there's such anti-trans rhetoric floating around that
horrific.
we defend ourselves. I completely understand that. But also there's like a savviness to, you know, choosing maybe something else as like the leading messaging strategy. At the same time, I also think that, that community is very, like, they are just what we were talking about earlier, outspoken and unabashedly themselves
So brave. So
as a
brave.
as a just philosophy, right? That's why they transition.
Yeah.
So they're not compartmentalizing, they're not necessarily maybe thinking about strategy and like the best way to like present themselves, because they're like, I've already gone through probably hell to like change myself. I'm just going to be myself and I don't care about messaging in a certain kind of a way. And so if
Yeah.
I were to guess where they're coming from, that's probably it. But yeah, whew, it's dark.
Yeah. That bravery separates some folks from the idea that your well-being is a slowly regenerating resource.
Hmm.
And in this field, when you're pushing back, you need to keep that in mind. You can't do it all at once. It's not,
Right.
you can't go to the gym and do 10,000 push-ups.
No, you have to, it's a marathon. You have
Yeah.
to pace yourself.
Yeah.
Um, totally.
All
Okay,
right.
should we move on to our final story?
Quick note. I need 5 minutes at the end because I know we're
Okay.
done at 3. I have a little surprise presentation because I want your thoughts on something as a story midway.
Yes. Okay, great. Okay, so Liberty University. I thought this was interesting because Liberty University is a very Christian university, and a guy who worked actually as an investigator for the Title IX office. So his job was probably to raise red flags to them about what was going on. Said that he had a boss who harassed people for reporting sexual harassment. So he's filed uh, a whistleblower or employment lawsuit against the university. But I think that's interesting that he himself, usually it's like the person who's reporting the sexual harassment, but he was the investigator seeing all the sexual harassment,
Yep.
reported it, and then was retaliated against, presumably for doing his job.
So I think it's always important to remember opposing work discrimination in Title IX or in a workplace. So Title IX is, of course, university academic settings. Very similar set of laws, just different venue, right? But in
Mhm.
either the workplace or in the university, opposing discrimination or participating in the investigation of discrimination or sexual harassment is a protected activity. So that means that
Mhm.
you're testifying or you're holding up a sign and protesting, or you are the, in fact, investigator, all
Mhm.
protected, right? And that's important because retaliation is real. Like if you are looking to delete
Yeah.
uh, a valuable provost or a valuable donor's son from the, the university environment, that is not going to go well for you. Like no one's looking to have their endowment lose 20 mil, right?
Yeah.
And let's be honest. Oh, so and so's son groped you. Well, he shouldn't have done that. But 20 mil. And that is how a lot of people think about it. And a lot of people behave. So I'm not surprised by this. Title IX
Mhm.
is wild. It's run by people who do not work in this industry in most universities. I've seen a ton of cases where there's no investigation done. There's a very valid complaint by a very valid victim. There's a somewhat valid defense raised, no investigation. And then the Title IX investigator comes and says, hey, we're going to go ahead and file criminal charges against you, or you can take this deal we're offering you, and we're not going to report. And we're going to tell the claimant not to report. There's so many layers of no
Wow.
on that. You're going to tell the claimant not to report a crime. What are you saying? And like, you're going to threaten her, but also, my God, my cough. Um, the idea that like, hey, if you put up a defense for yourself, we are
Yeah.
going to turn this over to the cops. We're going to escalate this. Do the investigation. You get paid to do the investigation. Do it.
Mhm.
What? I don't, it's what? It's
It
insane.
almost reminds me of what we were talking about with the military, like a different system of justice within the universities.
It absolutely is. Yeah, this doesn't surprise me at all. We take Title IX cases. They are uniformly set. Like it's always seeing young lives, not extinguished, but like knocked out of their path that they had planned. And you get weird. Yeah, like remember years ago that guy who like said his son like sexually assaulted an unconscious woman, I think behind a dumpster, and the guy was like,
Yes, the Chanel
he
Miller, Brock Turner.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, Brock Turner. And like I don't know if his dad or somebody said like, oh, you're gonna end his life for one bad piece of tail or something like that. And it's like, holy shit, dude. No. We're, that's fucking rape. Like what and you run into those mentalities, and it's just like for some reason in academia, the filters are off a little bit. And the person in the
Mm,
workplace who's like, well, this is how I survive, they're not going to say those things maybe,
right.
but you see them and it's
Totally,
just,
and especially professors who have tenure
yeah,
and situations where it's just a different employment system than a traditional employment system. Um, and then also you want to, yeah, it's probably hard to report if you, I guess this is the same in a workplace, but you want to continue researching or working or getting promoted at that university. And this one professor or department chair, whomever has all of um, has been harassing people, but you just want to handle it. Um,
yeah.
but I just thought it was wild that this was like an investigator. Like that's bold of them to fire the investigator because of course he's going to file a lawsuit, right?
I bet you if you went to the Ivies, you could
Yeah.
find 15 more of these where the investigator was fired. I'm not kidding. I can think of specific situations where I think investigators were like nudged out because maybe somebody
Wow.
was a little too famous, a little too brought too much money in the university, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's
I mean, it
it's
makes
sad.
sense.
Okay. Is that the last story?
The last one.
All right. Now be very critical. This is my presentation. So we started building an app, which is always right off the bat. Somebody's like, we're starting an app. I'm like, that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. But hear me out. So, as a story midwife, this app is meant to live on the person's phone and let them document instances of workplace discrimination and workplace sexual harassment with timestamps. So you
Mm,
go and like somebody sexually harasses you 6 months ago, you jot your notes in. This was the meeting. This was who's present. Here are the screenshots of the text. Here's the meeting invite with the attendance. And it's got a screenshot button and screenshotting the documentation into your narrative, building your narrative for you. And you document, right? Fairly simple idea. But when it's time, when you choose to hire a firm, doesn't have to be us, that documentation, time stamped, present sense impressions, is downloaded at the click of a button to the email of your chosen attorney. Again, doesn't have to be us.
mm-hmm.
So you're getting a server timestamp, so you know when it was created. You're getting screenshots, you're getting emails. You don't have to go into the company email. You can just screen grab on your phone, right? So you're not committing potential issues of sabotage or absconding with company information. You're just screenshotting the specific. Oh, we lost you.
Oops, I'm back.
You're here. Okay. And
Timestamps, the server timestamps. You have a
and it
log.
helps people to do this over time because one, the idea is a lot of people find putting their narrative, giving you or giving us their story, be incredibly hard. It's onerous. It flies in the face of that idea that your well-being is slowly regenerating. You have to do it all at once. And also, that's not really how the human memory works. If you do it all at once, you're then later going to think of, oh, this is a little bit different, or I remember this now. Humans don't remember everything at once. So if you're recording as you go, and then it's automatically generating for you the narrative with the inline attached documentation, so organized, so ready for the firm. It's going to help people get representation from because a lot of these firms don't want to listen. So instead of
Totally.
being a lot of people aren't great on the phone, right?
Yeah,
This happened to me and I can't really explain. I'm nervous. Yeah, great. Here, give me the download. We will
yeah.
send you attorney-client privilege. Give us the download. Let us look. Oh, this looks great. Let's make you an offer. It's going to help people get representation. It's going to take that burden off some of the people
Mm-hmm.
of having to create that timeline, triggering PTSD, triggering trauma, and it's also going to increase the value of the evidence because, again, you're not saying like, oh, okay, I created this narrative 7 months after everything happened. I created this entry of this narrative within 2 hours of when this happened on my phone, probably from the bathroom stall at work because you needed a minute to yourself, right? Like it just was, and you just do it. Listen, it's not rocket science. It's not like such a great idea, but I think it's going to be helpful. And I think it's going to help people obtain services like your service, our service, other firms. I think people can share it with their mental health professional. Here, this is what happened, you know?
I really love the idea. Is it ready or you're still building it?
So we just broke ground today. We have a name, a working title called Everybody Works.
Okay.
We need to workshop that.
Yeah.
Ideas welcome from the channel, from you, everybody. We're going to have over the next 6 months, monthly videos where we have one of the app developers present. Here's what we're doing. Here are the features we're rolling out. There's a lot of really clever features. There's a document scanner. There's a lot of stuff where it's like
The idea.
if
When
you're
I, I'm sure you baked in, privacy and security into it too, like warnings for people about, don't download this on your work phone or um, things that you've learned, understanding how employers, you know, surveil and spy on their employees sometimes. I'm sure you're baking that into the production. And
yeah.
there people are so interested in that right now. I interviewed with the Washington Post this week because they're doing a story about exactly this.
Oh,
How do workers safely communicate? Obviously, Signal is the big one
yeah.
that everyone's been talking about forever, so that's not novel at all. But I think that there will be a need for more, especially if we're heading into autocracy, like in this country, just to have but yeah, in the workplace to have a place to document and then to create a log that then, because right now when people come to me with evidence, they just attach like 65 different things, or they
Yeah.
forward me a billion emails, and like I have to then go through and put together the
Yeah.
timeline myself. It's very manual. So I think there will still always be a level of human interaction that's needed in
Yes.
developing all
Yeah.
this stuff. But to have and I think to frame it also as, because I remember when I was at times when I was sexually harassed, I would take screenshots, and a place where you put those screenshots
Yeah.
in your app if you ever want to see them or use them, and you have a repository. Or I would text friends and be like, this is kind of odd. He sent me uh, Marvin Gaye's Sexual Feeling over Slack. Um, so, stuff like that.
Classy.
It was a cover. It was a really cool brass band's cover of Sexual Feeling, which I don't know if that made it better, but I still like the song personally. So I guess good for him for
Okay. I'm glad it didn't ruin it for you.
yeah, for introducing the song or the rendition to me. But anyway, I think so long as you can get in the minds, and you can, because these people, of how people act, because people are not organized when they go through something like this. So
Mhm.
if it's just easy and it feels like texting a friend or taking a screenshot or uploading it, then I think people will definitely do it.
Yeah. And to touch on a couple of things you said, so we're going to have the logo be a slight variation on what normally looks like the calculator logo for both iOS and Android, so that people won't necessarily click on it. When you click on it, for most phones, it's going to be a thumbprint, like a fingerprint access.
Wow.
So you don't just, it doesn't just open. They can't just take your phone. They take
Right.
your phone. Maybe they get in your phone, but maybe they can't get in this app, right? Um, common issue, believe it or not. Anyways, I just want to get your thoughts. We committed to a 3-year cycle of development on this. We're expecting the version 1 product to be available for all firms, or all claimants, I guess, to use in 6 months. So we're
Cool.
kind of excited. It's kind of, I know it's like a little sketch to let other firms use it, but I think it's just going to help people. And I'm not too worried about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there will be all kinds of things that come up as you're building it that
It's
you'll
living and
learn.
breathing. That's why we went for that 3-year development schedule. We are going to let other firms white label it. We've already been approached by a personal injury firm and like a couple of things, but like I think this is really meant for victims of workplace discrimination, workplace sexual harassment. If somebody else can use it, great. But this is the goal, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyways, our time is about up. I just want to
Um,
get think about it. I love to get your thoughts. I'm excited for it. I hope it's useful to people.
yeah. Yeah. I'd love to help in any way I can. I think it will be. And it's
Thank you.
necessary. Like there aren't enough platforms like this. I don't think.
Yeah. I
There are
wish that we could afford Signal style. What's it called? The security.
end-to-end encryption.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's very expensive, it turns out.
Yes, it is.
I did not know. I said that to developers. They were like, "Oh, poor fella. It's not going to happen." And I was like, "Okay. All right.
Okay.
Fair enough." All right. Always a pleasure.
A pleasure.
Everybody, if this is helpful, like, subscribe, comment down below. Ari, we got to include your Substack. I think we might have missed it last time. Can you
Yes,
email me your Substack right now?
I'll do that now.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye,
Take care,
Vince. Have
everybody. Bye bye.
fun. See you later.